Welcome back to A Better World. This is your host, Mitchell J. Rabin, and we're very glad you've joined us again today. Today we're going to be continuing with the exciting exploration of Egypt and the Holy Land that we began in our last interview. That was with Sandra Michael and with Rabbi Al Bobroff, Bhavani coming in at the tail end to give us an astrological expose on the timing of this particular venture some of us are involved in, and we invite everyone to be involved in on one level or another, to Egypt and Israel in the month of November. So today we have Sandra Michael again, who's here with us from Hawaii, and we want to enjoy her presence here in New York City so we can talk about her relationship to this trip to Egypt and how she is going to be manifesting herself, really, and her place in the divine blueprint as it will be coming forth in Egypt. And toward the end of the show, the latter part of the show, Bhavani will also be speaking with us about some things that she didn't get a chance to include last time. In short, we were all thinking about and reflecting on our first show together on this subject and realized that there were some other details that we really wanted to include. So we decided to give it another go. And you will be able to listen. So, thanks a lot for joining us. I just want to say that any information that you would like to be able to get about the subjects that we'll be discussing, you can get by calling me, and I will send you out to the right people, and that is 212-420-0800. And we're glad that you've joined us. And I'm glad that you've joined us too.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Again.
Welcome from New York City to Hawaii. How is it for you to be here, anyway?
Well, there's a lot of magic happening here in New York.
Isn't there?
It is a place to work some magic as far as with people's consciousness and the change of consciousness on the planet. You can look around everywhere and tell that the planet is in deep shift.
Yeah, right. There's no swearing on our show.
You can tell it's a timing.
Yeah, that's really true.
The shift has hit the fan of accelerated evolution. We're here.
Yeah.
And it's high magic time.
So you can feel this in looking around at the faces in New York?
Oh,
Some of the faces.
Oh, it's everywhere, though, and even just little things here and there. Even the Subway. As a restaurant chain, they now have veggie burgers, garden burgers.
That's right.
Shift is happening.
That's right. It really is. That's right. It's taken a while, but it is in process. Yeah.
And that's really what we want to talk about today is the significance of the timing that we're going into now.
That's
for
right.
November. It's a planetary Kundalini initiation cycle, of people's their inner fire being woken up, people waking up consciousness, waking up, and that sacredness being experienced and expressed in the body and emerging, coming forth on the planet. And come 96, this is get ready time, getting ready to rock and roll. Shaking's happening, a whole lot of shaking going on, shift is happening. And in 96, the masses are ready for consciousness.
And that's real soon. That's real soon.
And we've waited a long time for this time on the planet.
Almighty.
We're here.
That is true. Now, what do you see as the particular significance of being in the geographical location of Egypt and Israel during the time period of October 31st through November 24th?
Yes, this is a location for being able to maximize the timing, as it's very apparent that, you look at the Great Pyramid, that there's something very significant about that structure. This is a temple of the world. And Egypt and Hawaii are on a direct axis point from one another anyway. And Hawaii is over the original site of Lemuria, the land of Mu, where the creation power is the strongest of anywhere on the planet. It's got the most new land on the planet, the most active volcanoes. The home of the goddess Pele is Scorpio goddess.
Healthy soil.
The air
Wonderful
is
fragrances.
alive with the mana. The spiritual power is like, the air is thick with it, and it caresses you, and it's like silk.
It really is.
And for the Hawaiians, for the kahunas, they consider Egypt the same, and this exact same teachings, the exact same, because it's part of the same lineage, the same heritage. So it's on that exact axis. And so
Frequency.
and that Great Pyramid is set up as an interdimensional communication device, or a technology that was placed here for very specific reasons in that particular location. There's no accident to it. It's the temple of the world.
It's just an etheric phone call away.
And there's some wisdom to it there's so many things. There's so much prophecy, and we have Sean David Morton, who'll be joining us, who knows how to decode all the prophecy of the pyramid, within the pyramid, all the dates and timings, and he studied in Egypt, and he's also a biblical scholar as well, and psychic, and trained up in
We went to
Himalayas.
university in Cairo, and we've had him on the show. He's a very impressive individual.
Brilliant. Love him dearly.
Truly.
And a master teacher. He's also studied in the Himalayas, in the Tibetan monasteries, and he's very, very highly trained.
He was trained in particular in future projection, in the technique of going forward.
And of being an earth keeper, too. Working with the energies for the planet, for holding the frequencies and the focus of that. And so he'll be sharing a lot of things about the pyramid. And another significance of it is, the blood crystals or tetrahedrons or double-sided pyramids.
You mean the crystal structure of the blood?
Yes, within the blood itself. And so you can use it as a communication device for the planet, to actually amplify or broadcast energies, similar to what's used with radionics.
Right. Well, there's a magnetic and resonant relationship with our blood to certain kinds of structures in particular. It's resonant with virtually everything in life, but especially when you get into something pyramidical, then you are intensifying, you're amplifying that relationship.
Yes. And even the word pyramid, when you look at it...
Pyre.
Mid, the fire in the middle. Fire within.
Yeah, right. That's right. Internal combustion.
And so this will be
in the real sense of the terms.
Yeah, initiation means initiation into higher power, initiation of that sacred fire within, and to amplify and broadcast specific intention. And in astrology, which we'll be utilizing also very much so, Daniel Giamario's shamanic astrologer, and then we've also received and brought through what my guidance has given me of specific instructions for timings and ceremonies of what's to be shared when and where, and this will be my 4th time back to Egypt. After the 12 was the last one. I figured 3rd time was a charm. I didn't think I was going back again, especially not this soon. It's very exciting for this trip, because this is going to be much more pleasurable, much more fun than any of my other trips there. But astrology...
Why do you say that?
Yeah, well,
because I'm going?
Of course. Well, this trip I looked at, if I could do this trip any way I wanted, if I could go with anybody I wanted, who would I want to come play with? How do we want to play?
And who?
So I'm glad you're coming.
Thank you.
Yeah. And also back to talking about the astrology, it's good, very, very good for showing a mapping of intention. And being able to utilize timings and potentialities, and as above, so below, what the heavens are portraying, reflects precisely the initiation cycle that is occurring on the earth.
So what would you say then about being in that place at that time? What is occurring temporally, astrally, that will make being there so interesting, and in a sense so spiritually uplifting for the people who are there? And of course, let it be known that anyone who decides to tune into this energy, wherever they are playing with us.
Please
it's
come
not,
play.
It's not geography specific or limited in any way. It really isn't. And at the same time, whoever is present is just getting to see the configurations overhead, at the Gizeh Plateau and the Nile, etc. That's just the reality of the situation. But we are involved in pioneering the manifestation of the human spirit on the planet. And I know that many of you watching are also coming from that same place. So wherever you're coming from, and wherever you happen to be physically, is really secondary. Where you're coming from in your heart is really primary. So that's why we're going. This is, in many senses, a mission. And it's a journey, it's a mission, and it's a fun one. And it's very much a celebration. I think it's very fair to say that we are going to be part of, if you will, a divine orchestration.
Yes.
And it's a party to which everyone is invited.
Yes, and join us in spirit and consciousness.
That's right.
Creating that global link of consciousness.
That's right.
Where there are no more secrets.
Very much like what we were doing during harmonic convergence.
Yes, that was one of the first.
Some people were, that's
link-ups.
right, exactly, a real formal worldwide one. Some people were at Stonehenge, some people were at the pyramids, we were in Machu Picchu, some people were in Central Park, some people were in the holiness of their own living room. And wherever anyone was, if they had the intention of the day, they were connected to the higher view that this was bringing forth.
Yes.
So,
yes, and that's what we're really evoking with this timing is that higher view, that higher vision, the grand vision of divine plan into the blueprint of higher self, that manifestation, that bringing forth, that calling forth of all higher consciousness into physical manifestation.
that's right.
Concretization, bring
Sure.
it right into the physical.
Sure.
In that creation, this is a timing for actually that initiation of the beginning of a new heaven and a new earth.
Yeah.
And what I like to call playing is, ascended masters in that conscious recreation or recreation. God and goddess beings in recreation, a new heaven and a new earth. And an initiation timing as far as to activate the power of pleasure, to bring back and reinitiate that power of pleasure on the planet, which isn't something that most people have thought of per se as a power. And yet what you focus on expands and thoughts create. So the essence of that power might have to do with the more pleasurable that you can experience your own body, your own life, your own self, this world as being, the more pleasurable it'll be for everybody. Now, how big is that? That's an assignment. That's a mission.
right.
Ecstasy hasn't been done big time on the
Someone's got to
planet
do it, and I'm signing up.
It's a great job. Joy of being.
That's right. I've been elected.
And we're out here recruiting. This is a multi-dimensional networking party.
Yes. That's right.
Multi-dimensional marketing.
And we're speaking through frequencies, waves, as it were.
Waves
to
of
all.
ecstasy.
Yeah.
And that's what this timing is about, is to initiate that wave of consciousness, a wave of energy of ecstasy and pleasure, and that ultimate transformational power of love on the planet. So you asked about the specific timings astrologically. It begins with, there are a number of things that precede it as far as, in October there are eclipses, for example, that precede this, and it's all been a major setup energetically.
In fact, maybe you should talk about Pluto, if you would, now.
Yeah.
Which is September 11th. Because Pluto is doing some funny things right now, which is bringing various things up for clearing, as it were, for inspection. Maybe you can just speak a word about that.
It's like final cleanup or clearing out of all the dread, anything and everything that's ever been denied, repressed.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the denied material, all the suppressed, repressed material or content. And so it's kind of that effect of cleaning out the closets, and dredging up the darkness, the dirty old stuff that nobody has wanted to deal with or feel. Yeah.
Lord knows there's a lot of that.
Yeah, and the abuse of power issues and violence.
Sure.
And,
and how long does
all
this
these
period
things.
last?
Well, we're in the last tail end, the culmination of this period. Pluto is completing this cycle during our timing in Egypt, and that will be another 11.
How long has this cycle been in
12
effect?
years.
12 years. Bhavani, is that correct? 12 years? Yes? Okay.
So what has the last 12 years of
no
your life
wonder
been like?
Reagan and Bush were in power for all that time.
Yeah, releasing all the abuse of power issues. Or how many people would just wake up one day and remember sexual abuse from their childhood or the incest and things like
Absolutely.
this. This was a sign of Pluto
It was
and
being
Scorpio.
recalled. It was being brought to consciousness.
And the past life memories coming forward.
Yeah.
Being called back up, all the things from the past, being called back up for review. It's like karmic clearinghouse time on the planet. It's another way of looking at it. And this last little period is kind of like the last hurrah of the dark side. In a sense, because this planet's going into light. Yeah, it's time. Yeah.
So what will happen to the darkness?
Where there's light, there's no darkness. It's all one. Ultimately.
Some teachings say that wherever there's light, there's always darkness.
Yeah.
One follows the other like a shadow,
Yeah, and that's that,
as it were.
merging of consciousness now yet. And integrating all the dark hidden aspects of self into true self. So letting go now is the process of time of clearing up the old ego issues and false ego identification, male ego issues and things like this. The ego's identification.
Not female ego. Just male.
Any variety of false ego
Yes,
identification with matter,
Yeah.
or the emotional attachments. And to merge that into true ego, true self.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's in that appreciation of the ego and all that that's allowed us that we
So
can move into
what
that
starts to
willingness.
happen upon the commencement of this journey? What fireworks begin to occur then astrologically?
Yes, I mean there is a major aspect that this begins with, and that is Pluto will be conjunct Venus. Venus, the planet of the feminine, the sacred feminine energy, the planet of love, beauty.
So it's going to be calling upon the female, the feminine, into greater manifestation. So there will be a balancing that's taking
Yes.
place between the elements,
Yes, so
especially between the masculine and the feminine.
Venus and Pluto be conjunct at 29 degrees Scorpio. And for me, this is a motif of the ultimate transformational power of love. That's the most comprehensive degree of Scorpio, which has to do with death, rebirth issues, degeneration, regeneration, descension into ascension. Yeah.
Got it. Emerging from Hades.
And Pluto, the lord of the underworld, so that integration, that calling forth of all the aspects that have been hidden, so that there are no more secrets, and
Right.
instead there's that knowingness of sacredness, and sacredness being that place where there is no dishonoring, no more discrediting, no more devaluing, demeaning.
Respect.
No dishonoring, that honoring of the sacredness of life and love, and the sacredness, the emergence of the sacred feminine, and that power on the planet. And so it'll be a timing for honoring the Scorpio goddesses, which Pele is one of them, because she's the goddess of fire. She's a Kundalini priestess of the Melchizedek order, in charge of that Kundalini fire for the planet. Of course, like I said, in Hawaii, it's the most active volcano in the world. So it'd be an honor to
I've
pay.
been there. Yeah.
But also in the Egyptian traditions, there's Sekhmet
Mhm.
and Mot. These are all Scorpio type aspects to these manifestations as goddess archetypes. And so that re-honoring of the sacred feminine, so that has to be brought up first, and that anchoring of the feminine flame, so that there can be the balance. And then this whole cycle then points to that balancing out and that merging in oneness of, the sacred marriage and divine union.
Mysterium conjunctionis is the phrase used in alchemy, which is the full blossoming of male and female in conjunction, in union.
The alchemy of ecstasy.
That's right.
And so this is also about bringing forth, calling forth that power of pleasure, which in the patriarchal version was like really did everything to suppress that, destroy it, cut it out. It was not. How many programs were in place with people that it wasn't okay to really enjoy being here or to enjoy our bodies, rather than fully honoring the sacredness of who we are and the sacredness, of self, the sacredness of, sacred sexuality, spirituality, sensuality. And so this is that initiation of that, knowingness of that, again, on the planet, the honoring of that, the sharing of that.
So that's at the beginning of the trip.
Yes, that's where we start.
Yes. Okay.
That's for a warm-up.
And moving right along.
And we have, this is a sunrise ceremony, which is appropriate to initiate the journey.
Which is taking place at the pyramid, is that correct?
A dawning of a new day, a new time on the
So
planet.
we will have the pyramid, in a sense, to ourselves.
5 a.m. To 9 a.m., I believe. And the timing, I believe, is at 6:38, something like that. There's a specific timing to that. We'll get to that when we bring Bhavani in. We'll make sure we get that timing exact so that everybody can have consciousness with that specific timing there, and join us in the pyramid, visualizing the heart flame. We call it the passionate violet flame energy.
Why don't you talk a little bit also, if you would, about the different temples that we're going to be spending some time in and the importance of those?
Yeah, so from the pyramids, we're going to go down the, we'll fly down to Aswan, and we'll be on the cruise ship. We're going to take the cruise up the Nile. And the Nile represents the Kundalini as well, and that flow of the Kundalini. And
It's the serpent through the land.
Yeah. And we'll begin at the Temple of Isis. And honoring the order of Isis and what she has carried, and asking, the initiate would begin there, and asking the permission of the goddess for rebirth, to begin life again, letting go of all that they thought they were, to be conceived of spirit, to be ruled by spirit. And so we'll start at the Temple of Isis. Have you been there?
No.
Oh gosh, it's the most beautiful temple at Philae. You take a boat, and besides on the cruise, you take another felucca boat, they call it. And it is so beautiful. And you go to this most magnificent temple. I hope I can convey the feeling of it at least, though we don't have a picture or anything to show people, but it's just so beautiful and such a powerful, and it's so impactful in the presence. The walls talk in those temples, and it's about that embodiment, actually, of all that sacredness of that temple means. To know the sacredness of our own temples of our being, and the temple of the goddess that we are, as bodies. And so we'll begin there, and then we'll go to the temple at Elephantine Island, a temple of Num, which is a temple of the first chakra. So after being conceived and being brought forth from the goddess,
Right.
as a new being,
Permission to live.
as an initiate, would first go to the Temple of Noom and learn to move beyond all physical limitation, so that no longer add effect from influences outside of self, but instead could just be that embodiment of truth and live that truth, live from that place. And so they would also spend time at the Temple of Noom in purification rites, fasting, and things like this to become very pure in mind, body, and spirit. And so, and moving beyond, so-called physical needs, because truly we don't need anything to be happy within self, to be fully satisfied and fulfilled within self. And so they move beyond the need for sleep or, so-called needs for food, comfort, and things
the externals.
Like that. And to become very self-satisfied. And it's also the place of the creation energy. It's the root chakra. And the potter's wheel, is there as that example, and that recreation of the body, transformation, the change of form of life. And so that initiation of that. And so from there we'll go to Komombu, which is another powerful temple of Horus and Sobek, which has to do with moving beyond duality. Sobek being the lord of the lower self, and Horus being the lord of the higher self. And moving beyond that, this was a temple where the initiates would go through different experiences. One might have been, swimming a pit of crocodiles, to move beyond all fear of death.
I was swimming with crocodiles in a dream recently.
Actually, it's not crocodiles. They're alligators. Yeah. No, crocodiles. Yeah. A crocodile pit. And to merge with their consciousness so fully, what would happen to an initiate if they had any fear of death and they entered that pool? So they would be tested. Initiates would be always tested. Are you prepared to let go of all death issues, all fear of death, to really live immortality, eternal life? And this is also another place where what's now called rebirthing was shared, and the alignment process that we share, the merging of higher and lower self into oneness. So there were a lot of things shared in this. Also a temple of healing. And so there are back chambers to this temple where it has all the healing arts depicted in the hieroglyphs. Yeah, so that's Komobu.
Beautiful.
Second chakra. Very interesting how you go through the different temples and the experiences in each one, and what it triggers within your own physiology, and how specifically the frequencies were set up at each of the temples, and ultimately for us to embody, to be the temples of the holiest high Lord, God and Goddess of our being, to fully manifest that.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then where do we go?
It's an exciting journey.
Do tell. Yeah, it is.
From there, we'll come on up. Temple of Horus at Edfu, which is one of my favorite temples. Horus, the hawk, the sacred sun. It's like Christ energies. And for clarity of vision, this is also a tantric temple. And there are many secret chambers. It's an incredibly magnificent temple there. Yeah. So, and Hathor would come from her temple, be brought down for their honeymoon there. Hathor is another temple that we will go to, a temple of Hathor at Dendera. The first time I went to that temple, I said, this is it, I'll just stay here, thank you very much. Hathor is the goddess of healing and dance and beauty and love and ecstasy and pleasure, and the goddess of wine. And she has her sacred union with Horus as the counterpart. But the Temple of Hathor at Dendera is it's exquisite. It's beautiful. There's a birthing temple at the front of it, and this was like a healing resort area, and people would come there for visionings, and there were certain chambers or rooms that people would go into to receive, their dreams, kind of like
incubation
vision quest.
chambers.
Yeah, there's the whole astrological mandala on the ceiling at the Temple of Hathor. In the outer courtyard, there was one area that people would come and this was where what's now called network chiropractic was practiced or shared, with the people, the masses, that would come, and they would be able to receive that there, which would initiate that same dance, that the dance of creation. That's what was taught at the Temple of Hathor, which is that weaving of the infinity movement with the breath, breathing in all the love of all life and letting go, because love is letting go. That weaving, that dance would be done on the roof, taught on the roof. But this was also that wave of life that could be initiated through the body and triggered to move through the body. Up and down the spine with fluidity. And so it's a very special temple there. So it's another favorite place.
And then?
Yeah, we're going to have...
you still have a few minutes, so...
Yeah, actually at the Temple of Horus, there's a significance astrologically that we'll be using in full moon ceremony at 14 degrees Taurus. And the moon is exalted in Taurus. Taurus is a very sensual sign, and it has to do with a tantric ceremonial time. We'll be doing ceremony in regards to the initiation of conscious equal relationship on the planet, where each party is equal, equality, total oneness, sovereignty, where each being is totally responsible within self for relating with one another within self. Relationship. So a new way of seeing relationships. How many of your relationships
have elation at its base?
Where you're totally responsible for how you're experiencing your relationship with everybody and everything within yourself all the time. Every moment you're totally a choice how you're experiencing. You can either be celebrating the moment, celebrating the perfection, the absolute total perfection of all that's actually occurring.
In reality, I know no one.
Or you could be making it wrong.
Who is at that place of
this is
choosing.
Conscious choice.
I know it is. But I'm saying I know nobody. So
Really?
if we're getting every moment...
Well, there's always room for more
every
love.
moment.
Always room for more
I don't know anyone who is in that state.
Yeah,
who can do that.
letting go of the blame game.
So if there
No more
is help on the way, both astrologically and by being situated in time and place, to receive assistance in that way,
it's a chance to amplify
I sure
intention.
would love to receive
and
it.
initiation. It needs to initiate a process. You got to start somewhere. It might as well be with us, God.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, conscious choice. We're either celebrating the moment, seeing the perfection, the beauty, the total miracle, and feeling the love of God and Goddess being in love within you. Or not, making it wrong. Could be, should be, would be better. What about this and what about that? It's supposed to be like this. You can always tell which you're in. All you have to do is check your feelings.
Yeah.
And, personally, I'm into partying, which feels better. This is just real practical stuff.
Right.
And to consciously choose love, to consciously choose to honor and see the perfection. That, again, that theme of honoring sacredness in relationship
Sure.
with all. So it's a great place to be. So that's a great timing. So please be aware of that full moon. It's on the 7th
of November.
7th of November.
My
Full moon in
grandmother's
Taurus.
birthday.
You'll remember that one.
Yes, I will.
And we'll be at the Temple of Horus, the Consort ceremony.
Beautiful.
Okay, and from there we go, 11, that is another window, so November 11th, and that's a gateway of consciousness, again, for the planet. And this is when Pluto is leaving Scorpio, finally, for the final time, and going into Sagittarius. Sagittarius has more...
And what is this, the end of a cycle of what length?
12 years.
Again, 12 years.
Yeah, this was the 12 years of Pluto being in Scorpio. And,
oh, I'm sorry, I got it.
yeah,
right.
death, rebirth,
It's the
and
same
digging
one,
up
right?
all the old
Sure.
issues to be transformed, for total transformation.
Yep.
Well, now this is the quest for freedom, truth, sovereignty. Yeah. Expansion of love.
Fantastic.
And the manifestation of high self. Yeah, basically. And so we'll be at the temples of Luxor and Karnak. Temple of Karnak has to do with, it's the solar plexus chakra, and has to do with issues of personal power and power. There's another aspect that occurs astrologically at that time, and that is a square between Jupiter and Saturn as well, which has to do with everybody being called up before the review board. And at the Temple of Luxor, it's like the etheric headquarters for the White Brotherhood there, which has to do with the initiate path. And so there's, everybody actually on the planet will be being called up before the review boards and before there's transference of power on the planet, and how is power going to be used now. And so this has to do with those things. And then also the Temple of Luxor is designed specifically to work with the grid systems, the planetary grid. And so there's much that can be accomplished, like an acupuncture meridian point of major significance. And you can literally feel there's all these energy lineups that you can walk these passages. And you can feel them, literally feel the triggering in your own body as it's also occurring in the planetary body. Yeah, so it's a major thing. There's also, at the Temple of Karnak, there's a wonderful little sanctuary of Sekhmet as well. That's very special. People in there. It's have to do with courage and passion. And that's standing for what is right and true. Leo Scorpio energy, because she's like the goddess lioness. Yeah. So that's another special place. We'll be in Luxor for a while, and there's a great sound and light show there, and great shopping in Luxor too. That's a great place. People can do their Christmas shopping.
What our old selves would think.
It's a good place to be. Very special.
And then it should be mentioned also, and I do want to include Bhavani in here to shed some light on this as well. We will be moving on for those who decide to do the physical journey and to do this last piece of it to Israel. And we'll be going to, it's very special to be in Egypt and to also connect that through the desert to Israel, because you really see the sense of continuum from one land to another, and the continuation of a certain spirit, a certain very deeply religious, I'd say, spirit, a real connection to soul. And as that changes from the Egyptian into the Jewish culture, and you get to see and experience the through lines from one to the other, as well as the specialness, the uniqueness that has flowered in especially Jerusalem, the holy city. And Jerusalem is divided in 4 directions. Where have we heard that one before? And each part of Jerusalem is honoring a different religion. And the one that we're going to be spending time in, especially, is going to be, I believe, the Jerusalem of the Old City, of the Jewish quarter, and going to the Wailing Wall and to the Temple Mount. And I think we'll to do both, because of course that is the site of the original temple. And yes, it's in other hands right now, but the spirit remains. And I think actually it's a spirit of brotherhood that, God willing, will be manifest right there between some ancient brothers. And this is getting very interesting, because Bhavani is coming closer to be speaking with us. She's edging in towards Sandra and I. And there's something that, as Bhavani is coming closer, I want to mention. After mentioning the magnificence of, and I was thinking about it as you were talking about some of the temples, the stones in the Old City of Jerusalem. And I was saying to you the other day that they really do speak to you. They're of a color, they're of an antiquity that brings your spirit back and present at the same time. It's sort of like connecting to the age of your soul, is one way of putting it. That you are both very present, and you're aware that it is a modern city with modern things like falafel and shopping. But at the same time, you feel like you're the oldest soul around, that you've been there for millennia. Yeah. And that it's appropriate to be back there again.
It's like fourth,
touching the
dimensional
stones.
Experience of time, past, present, future, all one.
Yeah, I would say so.
All fully present and full access.
Yeah.
To the continuum through all time and space. That place of knowingness.
I would say so. And there is a, how would I say? I would really say a grace that I felt lucky enough to experience in being in the Old City. I spent about a month and a half there some years ago. And there are catacombs. I mean, there's some extraordinary places to go and visit and spend time and connect to this resounding age of the human spirit. And, who knows, but, when you think about Lemuria and you think about Atlantis, we don't know if human life really did begin in the Mideast, that archaeologically is indicated in many ways, but you feel that you're at the beginning of humankind and part very much of the continuation of our purpose here.
And Rabbi Al Bobroff, of course, has much experience and much to share, with the heritage and lineage. And,
absolutely.
Yeah.
We will be having a rabbi who you saw, if you saw the last show, with us, and talking to us about his experiences in Israel, his experience of the Old Testament, and his understanding of the relationship of Eastern teachings with the Old Testament, and how there really is a great interplay and interaction between the concepts.
One of the things that I love that he says is that human beings are doomed to become angels, destined to become angels. And with the Kundalini activation initiation, there's a transfiguration or transformation that occurs of the circuitry, where there's a new species.
Sure.
Which is what we're going into.
That's
mutation,
right.
Total mutation from mankind into humankind.
That's right.
The God beings. Yeah.
That's right. And back to move somehow or another. Mutation. And before Bhavani begins, I have to say this. Recently, Bhavani and I were having a conversation, and through that, she revealed to me that she has had the experience many times of being Sarah. And so I want to bring that to bear in this context, because we meant to do it in another one and it didn't happen. And here we are. And in our conversation, since she feels that she was Sarah in past life, we decided to embark upon a certain action that could bring together and reinitiate the brotherhood between Ishmael and Isaac. And so we did a hypnotherapeutic session together in which Bhavani, as Sarah, got in touch with both her sons and spoke to them from her heart. And a very powerful, very loving, and at times very difficult time we had together going through that passage. But in fact, the action of passage that we went through together in that process, we feel is going to facilitate the actual future brotherhood of the Israelis with the Arabs, the Jews with the Muslims. And God willing, it will be so.
I had this thought as you were speaking, two of them. One is I suddenly got Ishmael as the angel.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that Itzhak was an angel, and that at the angel level the healing is already happening. Like there's a preparation and a healing in those dimensions that are ready to come through us. And then I got the thought that there's a specific spot that you are to find, which is a source spot where they are one. And from that place, in ceremony, release the scorpionic issues of jealousy and death and separation and blood and betrayal. And death being the illusion that we can no longer afford. Isn't that a good one?
That's beautiful.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, that's right.
And you will be in the state of energy, having imbibed all of these wonderful experiences, to find the place and release the ghost of the illusion of separation.
The ghost of the past, right.
Right.
As a part of, this journey is called the ultimate angelic mission. It's part of that.
Yes.
And this is being really put on by Angel Tours. So nothing is a mistake here. But to really convey an idea of the levels on which we're playing is to really understand that that we were going to be looking to be influencing these deeply rooted traditions with our cosmic play.
Yeah, and again, talking about the bringing forward of the sacred feminines, also to mention the honoring of Mary Magdalene, the Magdalene energy, which we very much carry, that lineage and heritage.
That's right.
And to be able to be present with that.
Exactly.
Yes.
And
of
the
course,
sacred marriage.
All of the groups that pretend that they're separate in that area can be healed.
Oh, it's so funny. And
Michael will be there.
If you think about it, it's almost like a joke.
Yeah.
Here are these warring religions, what were really institutions, the Christians and the Crusades and against the Jews and the Arabs, and here they are all in one city, literally back to back. Now, is that not a cosmic joke? I mean,
So all they have to do is turn
around.
Yes.
That's all they have to do is turn around, and they really are coming from one trunk. It's one root.
Oh, listen, you just said the magic words. My name is Bhavani now. And Bhavani is the consort of Shiva. And when you describe the trunk being the lingam, being the universal principle itself, which is also, when we use the words kundalini, chakras, all of this is from the core of Shiva Shakti, the divine God, goddess in union. And that central pillar of the unity is the one Father, Mother, God, that when we turn and face that center, we can't help but know how much we love. And I've been shown the full moon in June. No, which one is it? The Wesak.
Vesak in May.
Vesak
May
in May,
12th,
excuse me.
Buddha's
It's the
birthday.
Buddha moon, Buddha birthday. Excuse me, Buddha. It's the opposite
Right in your
of the
mind.
Scorpio. It's the opposite of the Scorpio Taurus. It's the Taurus Scorpio combination. And at that time, I would see this huge circle of all the beings that we associate from this dimension with different groups. There were the Hindu gods and the this gods, and they were all together in this great circle of light, and in the center is the Buddha and the Christ. And the light is pouring through the centers of the Buddha into the chalice of the Christ, filling it with nectar, and then everybody shares in the nectar.
It's a great party. Wesak
Right?
Festival, yeah.
Yeah, so this is like the opposite side of the year from the Wesak Festival.
And by the way, everybody's
Interesting.
invited to join that party. Be aware of this one, full moon next May.
Oh, yes. And having nectar and remembering that it is the one blissful, the way we get nectar in our own body is to remember the ecstasy of the true union with all other beings that are more than what the word brother has come to mean and what it means in terms of the angelic brotherhood.
Well, you just made me realize that one of the linguistic differences, one of the idioms that we're moving out of in the Piscean age when we go into the Aquarian age is we have been always saying when we have a party, BYOB, bring your own beer. Now it's going to be in the Aquarian age, bring your own nectar.
Yes.
Bring your own bliss.
Have bliss and travel.
That's right. B-Y-O-N, right?
I also had another thought. Because we are both Virgos. And Chiron is in Virgo now. And Chiron is the healing planet. And Virgo is the sign of initiation. It's the sign of all the technologies that we are now using to prepare to bring through the bliss, to release, to heal, to fast. And so now during Virgo, when the two of us have our birthdays, you're having this phase of the initiation presented to you. And the Virgo level of initiation, which is all the knowledge that you need to go forward, is necessary before you can let the incredible power of the Kundalini energy, of the fire of God, awaken in Scorpio. That was a thought that came up also.
Yeah, and this is
Very
all
good.
shamanic, and with the Pluto understanding too, you're bringing forward all the wisdom. This is very, very significant in this journey, or for everybody to be aware of. This is a shamanic celebration time. A new shamanism. Bring forward all the wisdom of all the traditions, of all the paths, of all the past, of all the lineages, of all the religions. Let's bring forward all the wisdom of all of it. And like I said, shift has hit the fan, accelerate evolution, quantum leap of consciousness. And it's time to now fully embody that wisdom of all the genetics. The body is a condensation of consciousness in bodies of the earth. And through the body, we actually have access to all the wisdom of all
That's
that
right.
has ever gone before us on this planet, or ever been associated with this planet.
It's in us.
And now how does that wisdom really want to play here on earth now? How does that wisdom want to experience and want to really express in full power, in full passion, in full embodiment of that
It's
truth,
probably a good
that
time to
wisdom?
mention that since you mentioned Sean and Daniel and Rabbi Bogroff, myself, you, the other is George Niobe.
Yeah, Uncle George
And
Niobe.
who is, as we said the last time, a true treasure, and is part of the Hawaiian lineage that goes back far before recorded time in history. And so when you talk about bringing forth all of the wisdom teachings from the past, he, of all, is literally carrying so much of that in this one lifetime even.
In the actual lineage of the Ali'i, he's a true of the royal lineage, which is, you can actually track his lineage, has the blood line of the direct descendants of the gods, which is what the Ali'i lineage has to do with.
Yeah. So this is some of the power that this particular journey is packing.
Yeah, and the Hawaiian chants being the same as the Egyptian, and I think I shared with you, or I was sharing so some of the activations that have occurred using the chants within the pyramid one time, and
Yeah.
the chamber that was discovered through that invocation. Now see, we'll have Uncle George also sharing the ancient chants and activating, each of the temples through the
Beautiful.
frequent vibration as well as.
Listen, since we are very close to being out of time, and I don't feel like any show with you, Sandra, is complete unless you share with us a Hawaiian chant. Could you bless us with that in our closing moments?
Gosh, we didn't even get to talk about that final closing, finales. Like we'll be back in the pyramid again for the 18th, midnight to 4 a.m. The 18th in Egypt.
So in
is
other
a
words, we
perfect-
come full circle. We begin at the pyramid, and we end after the trip down the Serpentine Nile in the pyramid.
Yeah, Kundalini
Before-
initiation for the planet and that
Yeah.
flow.
Sure.
And we're going to be ending in private ceremony in the pyramid with the specific timing. And astrologically, Venus, the planet of love and beauty and the sacred feminine, is conjunct Mars, the planet of the male principle of God, the active action principles of God, masculinity, in union with Jupiter, which rules Sagittarius, and the planet of expansion and sacredness, actually, too, and abundance. And so it's a very powerful symbol of divine marriage and the sacred union. We'll be using
So that's going to be sealing the entire experience.
and that's during Pleiadian lineup, which is when the sun is at 26 degrees Scorpio, and it lines up with the Pleiades, and it lines up, directly with the temples of Egypt. And so that's another.
So that's going to be coming in at the same
specific
time.
window of the
Right.
Pleiades. So this is a very, very powerful lineup. And then similarly, there's a couple other very significant timings. The 22nd will be in the Holy Lands, actually. But on the 22nd of November is the new moon at 29 degrees Scorpio, which is the culmination, the final completion, the final integration of all shadow content to seed. It's a new moon, so it's a seeding of the new consciousness and new heaven and new earth. And then we end on the 24th, at the cave, and the emergence as the Christed beings. Again, Venus and Mars in that conjunction with the galactic center in the heart of the Scorpion. So very exciting.
Therefore, if you want to know more about the completion of this journey and the other details that are relative and pertain to all that we have been talking about here, Bhavani, Sandra, and myself, you can simply give a call for further information, 212-420-0800, and we'll do everything we can to accommodate you.
And there will be Hunakani practitioners also sharing ceremony all over the planet simultaneously as well. So please
Wonderful.
join that way.
And this may be aired also across the country in different cities, so many people in public access stations can be experiencing it. So thanks both for being with us.
Do we have time for that chant now?
Nope. They're going to have to tune in
So
another time.
we'll just share the most sacred word for the
So-
kahunas in the Hawaiian. Aloha.
Aloha and shalom. Thanks for joining us. This is Mitchell J. Raven for A Better World, and we will see you next time.